OK, we just heard from all the politicians on today's big stories, but now it is your turn. We're live and we're ready to hear from you on Raw Politics. Your call. Good evening and welcome to the programme. Tonight we are also not just going to hear from you, we are waiting on the British Prime Minister Theresa May, who is going to apparently make another address to the British nation on Brexit, having locked, I think, the Cabinet who she's been meeting with for the last 7-8 hours inside Downing Street, so nothing can leak out. As I say, she is due to make what we suspect might be a significant statement on Brexit in the next couple of minutes or so. There'll be full coverage here on Euronews.
Indeed, so stay tuned for that. It will be taking place imminently. But in the meantime, you can start getting on the phones or taking to Facebook and Twitter to tell us what you think about the following questions. The first one we're putting to you tonight is how a no-deal Brexit scenario could affect you, because it's becoming a more likely scenario according to the EU's chief negotiator. That's Michel Barnier. That's what he said this morning here in Brussels when he was speaking at the European Policy Centre. Business is facing uncertainty, people alike, so we want to know about yourself, how you feel personally about a no-deal scenario. Also, is Europe overly dependent on America for defence? Tonight, NATO is celebrating its 70th birthday, a big bash planned in Washington tonight. But there is, of course, this increasing divide between Europe and the United States, particularly when it comes to spending. Donald Trump is not terribly happy. The Germans seem to be suggesting they're not prepared to pay the full 2%. Is Donald Trump right? Should Europe get a bit more serious about its defence spending? What do you think? Give us a shout. Tell us, is Europe overly dependent on America for defence? That is the question. And the third question we're putting to you tonight is Italy being economically irresponsible? So Commission President, that's Jean-Claude Juncker, said he's worried about the Italian economy and he's calling on the government there to do more to boost growth. He was visiting the Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte today, and as you know, probably tensions have been high between Brussels and Italy regarding its high spending budget and of course the universal basic income that they introduced, and of course lowering as well the pension age. So we just want to know, is Italy being economically responsible or is it just looking out for its citizens? Let us know. You know what to do. Pick up the telephone. It's the same number. It's still free. You've got no excuse not to. It's 00800 333 3702. Victoria and Phillips sitting there in the basement of this Parliament, braced to take your calls. You can email us at rawpoll@euronews.com, or of course you can check us out on social media. Use the hashtag #RawPolitics on Twitter or indeed on Facebook. Absolutely. Get in touch. As we said, it's free. Thanks to the European Parliament who's paying for it, despite the fact that the Brits are leaving and, of course, pay the most into the budget. But do get on the line and give us a call. And joining us here tonight, here in the European Parliament in Brussels, we're delighted to welcome Nathan Gill. He's a British MEP and he's from the Brexit Party. And we've also got Sirpa Pietikäinen. She's a Finnish MP. She sits with the European People's Party. So we're delighted to have you both here tonight. So you're very welcome.
Thank you.
And of course, we are, as I say, imminently waiting that statement from Theresa May. We will have coverage of that on Euronews. But let's get up to date with the latest other news happening throughout the continent tonight and join Isabel, who's standing by at Euronews headquarters. Isabel.
Good evening to you, Darren and May. Well, as you said, we are waiting for that statement, which we'll be bringing to you live with just 10 days to go before Britain is scheduled to crash out of the European Union. Prime Minister Theresa May has made an 11th hour push to unite her ministers behind a plan to break Parliament's Brexit deadlock. Well, a marathon cabinet meeting unfolded at number 10 Downing Street today as opposition MPs ramped up their calls for more parliamentary votes on Brexit alternatives, possibly tomorrow. Meanwhile, in Paris, the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has been meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. They're calling on the UK to provide a clear proposal for Brexit. Well, as we said, we're expecting Theresa May to make a statement very shortly. Authorities in Mozambique are scrambling to contain the spread of cholera as one person dies and the number of reported cases of the highly contagious, deadly disease rises to more than 1,000. Health workers are set to begin a vaccination campaign to contain the outbreak that's emerged in the wake of Cyclone Idai. The cyclone caused massive flooding and has killed more than 700 people across southern Africa. And the low-cost Irish airline Ryanair has been named one of Europe's top polluters, according to new data from the EU's Transport and Environment Group. The carrier was ranked as the bloc's 10th biggest polluter, behind a collection of 9 power plants located in Germany, Poland and Bulgaria. Well, those are our top stories. Now back to you, Darren and Maeve in Brussels.
Isabel, thank you very much. Indeed, full news bulletin coming up at the top of the hour at 8 o'clock. As I say, though, we are awaiting this statement for number 10 Downing Street in London after, I think, a 7-hour, 15-minute cabinet meeting involving Theresa May and her cabinet. We are led to believe that it will not be the announcement of a general election, but it could be a possible change in direction when it comes to Brexit. Lots of rumours circulating that the Prime Minister may well, in the end, actually come out in back Britain staying inside the customs union, something she's ruled out for the last couple of years. Let's just get your response to that, first of all, Nathan. If that is the path that Theresa May is going to go down, let's say it is only speculation at the moment.
Yeah, because this feels a bit like
that
vu,
Brexit?
doesn't it?
Is that Brexit?
Sorry, is what a Brexit?
If Britain stays inside the customs union?
No, it's not. It's not what we voted for. The Prime Minister made it very clear before we voted for the Brexit campaign that we would leave the customs union and we would leave the single market. If we stay in the customs union, we are paying taxes without any representation. And you know what happened last time that happened to the Americans and, in 1776. You cannot have a situation where we're having to take rules.
Sorry, we're just going to introduce you, Nathan, because we're going to go to number 10 and listen to Theresa May, see what she has to say.
British people voted for, and allow us to move on and begin bringing our divided country back together. I know there are some who are so fed up with delay and endless arguments that they would like to leave with no deal next week. I've always been clear that we could make a success of no deal in the long term, but leaving with a deal is the best solution. So we will need a further extension of Article 50, one that is as short as possible and which ends when we pass a deal. And we need to be clear what such an extension is for, to ensure we leave in a timely and orderly way. This debate, this division, cannot drag on much longer. It is putting members of Parliament and everyone else under immense pressure, and it is doing damage to our politics. Despite the best efforts of MPs, the process that the House of Commons has tried to lead has not come up with an answer. So today I am taking action to break the logjam. I'm offering to sit down with the Leader of the Opposition and to try to agree a plan that we would both stick to ensure that we leave the European Union and that we do so with a deal. Any plan would have to agree the current withdrawal agreement. It has already been negotiated with the 27 other members, and the EU has repeatedly said that it cannot and will not be reopened. What we need to focus on is our future relationship with the EU. The ideal outcome of this process would be to agree an approach on a future relationship that delivers on the result of the referendum, that both the Leader of the Opposition and I could put to the House for approval, and which I could then take to next week's European Council. However, if we cannot agree on a single unified approach, then we would instead agree a number of options for the future relationship that we could put to the House in a series of votes to determine which course to pursue. Crucially, the government stands ready to abide by the decision of the House. But to make this process work, the opposition would need to agree to this too. The government would then bring forward the withdrawal agreement bill. We would want to agree a timetable for this bill to ensure it is passed before the 22nd of May, so that the United Kingdom need not take part in European parliamentary elections. This is a difficult time for everyone. Passions are running high on all sides of the argument. But we can and must find the compromises that will deliver what the British people voted for. This is a decisive moment in the story of these islands, and it requires national unity to deliver the national interest.
Minister Theresa May. That was the British Prime Minister Theresa May there talking to the British nation, addressing them tonight, talking and making some significant moves, it seems, on Brexit. Many have accused her of not acting in the national interest, putting her party before country. Much more conciliatory tone tonight. A few lines out of that. First of all, that she is going to apply for yet another Brexit delay past the end of next week. She said it would hopefully be a short extension to end when a deal is passed, that she's offered to sit down with the Labour opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, to agree a plan to leave with a deal. And if they cannot agree on that, that they will then at least agree to put forward various options to the UK Parliament, which would then see which one had the highest level of support. So the Prime Minister, in some regards, moving away from control of this process. Many have already said she has lost it, reaching out to the opposition and deciding ultimately it is up to Parliament ultimately to decide when and how Britain should leave the EU. But ultimately that at this moment in time, given it'll have to be a request and it'll be up to the European Union to agree to it or not, but she is going to seek another Brexit delay past the end of next week. Let's go to our correspondent in London, Vinny McAvinny, who is standing by for us. Vinny, is this, and it does seem like, a significant tack in change from Theresa May?
It's definitely significant. Here comes the government now. Mr. Hunt, is this soft Brexit?
Are you happy with the plan?
Are you happy with the extension, Mr. Hunt? Well, there was the Foreign Secretary leaving, not saying anything about this. All of the cabinet have actually been kept inside whilst the Prime Minister was making this statement. That's why the street is so full with cars here, Darren. Although Andrea Leadsom, who is the leader of the Commons, left before the statement was made. She is someone who I think will be quite disappointed that the Prime Minister is trying to get this extension. So there we have it, a statement from the Prime Minister saying that the extension to Article 50 will be as short as possible and needs to be clear what it is for. She said that she was going to sit down with the leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, to try and agree a plan they can stick to. There's the Home Secretary. Mr. Javid, is it soft Brexit? Are you happy, Mr. Javid? There goes the Home Secretary there. He is also remaining tight-lipped about this. It is thought that the Cabinet was definitely split on the issue of trying to get this extension, but it seems that Amber Rudd and Philip Hammond, the Work and Pension Secretary and the Chancellor, have both managed to win the argument after that epic 7-hour Cabinet meeting that they had here at number 10 Downing Street, Darren.
And just, Vinny, looking at what potentially could play out, it does seem, given the fact that she wants to talk to Jeremy Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn has been insistent that essentially the UK needs to stay inside the customs union, are we now looking at potentially that path where Britain will start and ask for negotiations to stay inside the customs union?
Well, I think so, Darren. They've obviously been going through all of the options here inside number 10. One of those was a general election. Another was bringing Theresa May's withdrawal agreement back for a fourth time. But I think this is finally, from the Prime Minister Theresa May, recognition that she does not have the numbers. Many people believe she should have reached across the aisle many years ago, that she shouldn't have set her red lines by those people in the cabinet that she calls the Spartans. That they're calling themselves the Spartans, the ERG members who simply won't vote for anything, who now want that no-deal Brexit. There was around 35 of them last week who voted against the Prime Minister's deal. She hasn't been able to bring many Labour MPs on board because they are not happy with the kind of Brexit she's gone for. So it does seem that she might be pivoting to try to get that softer Brexit. I think that's what Jeremy Corbyn will be pushing the Prime Minister to do, definitely to try and stay within the customs union, which of course has been the most popular proposal. It was only defeated by a margin of 3 votes last night in that second indicative vote. But we'll see what the reaction is like from MPs now to this decision. It's going to be quite divisive. And of course, Theresa May last week said that she'd be going if her withdrawal agreement was passed, but that seems to have gone by the wayside now. The Prime Minister saying that she will carry on working, that she will go to Brussels, work with Jeremy Corbyn, but is hoping to get something sorted by the 22nd of May. Mr. Grayling, are you happy with the decision of the extension? That was the Transport Secretary there, Chris Grayling, leaving, and another one not saying anything. It's thought that he was not happy as well about the prospect of this extension. There has been a real divide in the cabinet. It's thought that around 15 or so were not happy with having any kind of extension. 10 or so were, and it seems that the minority here has worn out. Mr. Gork, are you happy with the extension? And yet another one. That's the Justice Secretary, David Gork, also remaining tight-lipped about this. And I think, though, over the next few hours, we'll probably get word. The Cabinet has been leaking pretty heavily recently about just how explosive these meetings were. They were meant to last for 5 hours. They went on for 7. And then, as I mentioned, they were all locked inside there without their phones, we understand, until the Prime Minister had made this statement.
Vinnie McAviney, and your gallant efforts there to get a response from UK Cabinet Ministers. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from London. Just to recap, Theresa May tonight saying that she is going to apply for another Brexit delay past 12th of April, of course, the end of next week, in order to avoid a no-deal Brexit, given the fact that neither her deal or indeed the options on the table in Westminster at the moment seem to have a parliamentary majority. That she is now offering to sit down with Jeremy Corbyn to plan a way to leave with a deal, which some would view as an attempt potentially to soften her red lines, particularly when it comes to a customs union, given that's what the Labour opposition have called for. But a sign that Theresa May is reaching out in a form of national unity, many would say long overdue, to try and see if Parliament can come to a consensus. If she made it clear that Jeremy Corbyn and her, the opposition leader, couldn't come to a consensus over the coming days on what to do next, that they would put various options towards Parliament yet again to see which had support. But it is clear that she's still trying to leave the European Union, seems determined to leave the European Union before Britain would have to take part in those EU elections. Two interesting points we'll have to look out for tonight are the response, of course, of the Brexiteers within the Conservative Party, because she does seem to be taking no deal off the table. What will their response be? What will the response of the DUP, who prop up our government? And indeed, what will be the response of the European Union? People here in Brussels, are they prepared yet again to kick the can down the road a little bit for a shorter extension, with still a lack of certainty that ultimately she can get a deal, or the Parliament can agree on a deal over the line? Let's get the response of Nathan Gill, who is a Brexiteer and has been listening to what Theresa May had to say. This looks like now a softer form of Brexit, trumping no deal.
It does, and I'm just wondering what the cabinet members are actually going to make of this, because it was kind of a flashback to Chequers. Do you remember where they had this agreement? She kept them all in. She wouldn't allow their cars there. They would have to walk if they left the meeting. And then afterwards, when they all went away and digested it, we had a dozen resignations. And I suspect we're going to have some resignations as a result of this. This is not palatable to Brexiteers. It really is not.
And what about the Europeans?
Yeah, I was going to say, because Michel Barnier said last Friday, he tweeted that if the UK wanted to stay inside the customs union, it could be negotiated within 48 hours. So is this good news, do you think, for Europe if Britain wants to stay inside the customs union?
Well, definitely it would be better for Europeans, but especially for Great Britain, to stay within the customs unions and to have the cold Brexit with all the devastating economic and other consequences. But let's see how it works, and whether, as said, there's the political support. But there's
Nathan,
one lesson.
You want to leave the customs union.
How can we strike new trade deals around the world? How can we control our borders? How can we control who comes and lives in our country? We will have to pay to be within the customs union. We promised the British people that we would no longer be paying huge amounts of money to the Europeans. All of the things that we voted for on the 23rd of June, this does not fulfill. This is not Brexit. So you're going to have a cancer within the EU going on for decades, unless you sort this out now.
Well, I wouldn't call it a cancer, I would call it a reason going on in the future. But I understand very well why this is not acceptable for those ones who wanted to clear-cut Brexit.
But we won the referendum. So surely we're the ones who should receive the answer.
But may I continue? Then again, it is the question for you, the cold Brexit is the only solution.
Let's do it.
And then, well, people pay the price. And as I said, this is the lesson that there's not the backstop for stupidity in politics. So voters should be pretty sure what they are voting for when they vote in referendums or parliamentary, be it European Parliament or
I don't think
British
you can dismiss
votes.
Brexiteers as being stupid.
Well,
I think that's very unfair. I think it's very unfair.
On that note, this is also about you. We want you to get in touch. What do you think of what the British Prime Minister had to say? You know what to do. Pick up the phone. It's free. The details are on the side of the screen. 00800 333 3702. Use the hashtag #RawPolitics. Nick tweeting in saying a fourth deal to vote on in Parliament. Let's keep trying until we get away. Remainers should take note of this hypocrisy. Tim Wilson, they spent all day to come up with that. Hashtag revoke Article 50 now.
And it's interesting, actually, how Sirpa and Nathan are squabbling there and disagreeing, and that's happening right now in the UK among so many people. And, I mean, the no-deal scenario still could be on the table, and that's what we're asking our viewers about tonight. And I believe we do have Philip from France on the line. So we'd like to ask you tonight, Philip, how would a no-deal Brexit affect you?
Hello there. Well, me, with living in Europe, being a Brit, it's affecting me now, and it's nice that she's trying to get an extension. But basically, my life is more or less ruined now with all this panic that's been going on. Me and my partner, my ex-partner, she's moved to England, and I'm still living here. So we're selling our house. She's had to come over. And she's actually, she's setting off on Sunday before the 12th of April to try and get the cats across, because she had 2 cats here.
So, Philip, are you happy tonight then that Theresa May seems to be suggesting that she wants yet another Brexit extension? Is that good news for you?
Well, it is, but it's not going to benefit me anymore because I'm losing everything now anyway because of the April the 12th. Yes, no, that's good for me because when the house is sold, I need to start looking for social housing here, and I'm so worried that if we go to a no deal, our France, even though I've been here 17 years, I'm not going to be able to afford to buy another house. I have to go into social housing. I am worried that they're going to say no.
Nathan,
the computer says no. And sorry, Darren.
I'm just going to bring in the MEPs and stay on the line, though, Philip. Isn't that the point that this process has created so much uncertainty, not just for people in the UK, but for millions of people on the continent too?
And
absolutely, and it's disgraceful that politicians have had 3 years to give certainty to people like Philip. Philip, it's all Project Fear 2.0. It really is. Are you telling me that we're not going to let your cats back into Britain or vice versa just because we go out with no deal?
He's making a valid point.
That was one of the points of his argument.
Yeah, but he's making a valid point, which is that he will stop being an EU citizen.
Yes.
And of course, EU countries are going to treat British citizens differently if they are no longer EU citizens living in Europe.
But OK, so we're here in Belgium and there's stacks of people who were not born in Europe who live here who don't have any problems at all. Why would British people suddenly have problems just because they've chosen to live somewhere in Europe? But the whole referendum, I'm sorry, Philip, wasn't about Britons that live in Europe.
Sorry.
It was about the Britons that live in Britain.
Guys, just hold on 1 second because we've got Jean-Claude Juncker. Mr. Juncker? We're live on the air. Mr. Juncker, the President of the Commission, is just over there. Mr. Juncker, can I just ask you about Theresa May's extension?
We're live on Euronews. Can you come over and say hello?
Do you welcome the Prime Minister's extension?
He said it's good news.
He didn't. He just said, have a good evening.
Well, we know how he's feeling about Brexit. He's fairly fatigued.
We're in the heart of the European Parliament and we get all sorts of people. He is just over there, refusing to comment on what the Prime Minister has said tonight. Anyway, it was worth a go. I got inspiration clearly from Vinny and we went with that. But it is this uncertainty. You know, Philip, we get these phone calls all the time. But, you know, how much is Europe to blame for this uncertainty too?
Well, I wouldn't blame Europe because we've been negotiating the deal And we've been making quite a whole lot of bridging legislation, just waiting what is the Britain's decision, because it's up to you to make the decision. And this bridging legislation actually takes care that people can travel, that the planes are not grounded, and that everyday life goes on, let's say at least half a year or 1 year.
Yep.
But that doesn't solve the problems about property rights. That doesn't solve the problems in the longer term. Is it going to be a hard or difficult process? Of course, anyone can apply in Belgium or in Finland for the citizenship,
Sure.
but it has been totally different than within the Europe, where you have been free to travel, to work, and to study and the research. And there's a huge issues, for example, in the research community, where the benefit has been great in both Britain side and in European side, with the great universities and researchers, what there are. And so there's, with a good reason, a lot of uncertainty that is going to stay for quite some time.
Well, indeed, and that may well continue, particularly if there's another extension. Philip, thank you very much for calling in. Sorry we didn't get back to you, but we do have to take a quick commercial break here on Euronews, on Raw Politics. Your call, of course, we're asking you tonight, not just about Brexit, but Italy. Is it being irresponsible about NATO and defence spending? But also, we want your reaction to what Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, has had to say in the last half an hour or so. Pick up the phone, get in touch, and join us in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Your call. We have had a reasonably entertaining and informative, potentially half an hour, certainly from the British Prime Minister. She's been talking in Downing Street, in which she's revealed that she's going to apply for yet another Brexit delay past April 12th, to see if she can get a deal passed, a deal that she's now willing to try and reach with the Labour opposition, agreed to meet with Jeremy Corbyn to try and deliver a plan. If that doesn't work, we may well be back in Parliament, in which she's essentially going to hand them control to decide on what type of Brexit she wants. All in all, two things interesting from it. First of all, she now essentially seems to be ruling out no deal, because she does want to leave with a deal. But second of all, it looks like Britain may well end up with a softer form of Brexit, of course, on the proviso that this plan works. And we have not yet had a response from many of the key Brexiteers within her own party, and indeed from the European Union, who would have to agree to that extension, which she says she wants to be short so that Britain does not take part in the European elections.
So that would inevitably be, of course, the 22nd of May. Well, it'd be interesting to get your perspective on that, the European side of things when it comes to an extension. Do you think there would be will here to offer a longer extension?
Well, I think that there would be all the political will to offer an extension and to negotiate, as we have seen throughout the difficult process. But there comes the legislation, because we have the European Parliament election, and our constitution says very clearly that a country can't stay as a member country without representation in the European Parliament. Yeah. And so then what that would lead is that either there's the solution in April, or then the Britain will enter to elections, choose the MEPs, and then there's the longer period for continuation of the negotiations.
Okay,
but that
super.
then...
We do have Eamon from Poland there on the line. Eamon, thank you so much for calling us tonight. Can you tell us, do you want to see a Brexit extension?
Well, I don't want to see Brexit at all, but an extension...
I think that says everything.
I think you may just have summed up our entire view to a Brexit extension in some ways. Sorry, Eamon, carry on.
Okay, they tried to blame the EU for their impasse, shall we say. Now she's going to kind of like go back and blame Jeremy Corbyn for the impasse.
Smart move, actually.
And that really doesn't make any sense. Because Jeremy Corbyn's not going to talk to her. Nobody's going to talk to her, because Brexit really doesn't make any sense to anyone.
When you say it doesn't make sense, I mean, to those that want to leave, it makes sense in that they voted to leave, and Britain's still in nearly 3 years later.
Yeah, but the idea that they want to leave what do they want to leave?
Nathan,
and Nathan's still sitting here as an MEP when he should have left on the 29th of March.
We want to leave the political European Union. We don't want to leave Europe because we're connected to Europe. We want to still trade with Europe. We want to be friends with Europe. And if you choose to live in Poland, you know, you're more than welcome to choose to live there. And if the Polish people are happy to have you there, that's wonderful. But we do not want to be governed from Europe any longer. That's what we want to leave. And I think you actually hit on the biggest point that I picked up as well on is the fact that I think Theresa May is now bringing Jeremy Corbyn into her web of trouble, and I wonder whether he's going to fall for that or not. I think he might actually kick back and not fall for her trick of becoming the scapegoat in all of this.
Eamon, what do you think about Nathan's point, though, which is, you know, people did vote to stop Europe making rules in the United Kingdom. Surely you understand that point.
Well, I spent 24 years of my life in England. I'm Irish, but I spent 25 years of my life in Poland. European Union has been so good for Poland, so good for European unity. Why break a peace project?
But we're not. We're just removing Britain from it. The rest of it will continue, and they can help Poland as much as they want. And Yemen, if you want to, you can get Polish citizenship, can't you? And you can stay there for the rest of your life. There's no problem with that, because that's what people have always done.
Super, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's not fair to say that the Europe there is making rules for you in Great Britain or for us in Finland, because at least we Finns are part of the European Union. I'm part of the European Parliament. Our government is part of the decision processes, and certainly Great Britain has been a big part of MEPs and a very important player in the influential partner in the council. So it's not fair to say that it is the remote Europe. It is us Europeans, Brits, making decisions also.
Indeed, British ministers travelling to Brussels and Strasbourg and Luxembourg for various...
You know what?
Isn't the problem, though, that British people have never really properly felt European?
Well, I think this is not true. I do have quite a number of friends and colleagues in Great Britain, and they frankly do feel being Europeans. But there are certainly some people who do not feel that way, and that's why the nation seems to be so divided on this issue. Those ones feel fiercely, actively Europeans, work in the Europe, in science, in business, in everyday life, even in cattery, raising the cats or doing whatever they do.
Minority.
I wouldn't say. And those ones that feel so a bit more remote, but that is the case in Poland, in Italy, and in Finland. People that feel more detached to Europe, or that matter to Finland if they live in remote areas in Finland, so they think their village is the sort of the focal point.
And Sirpa, just briefly, how is Brexit viewed from Finland?
Well, it is looked very carefully, with a great sorrow to say, because Great Britain has been a great partner in the European Union to stand for free trade, for liberal values, and a lot of this kind of a good thing that we felt that Great Britain and the Nordics have shared and common interests. And now it seems a bit frustrating, you guys leaving there in one hand, and then on the second hand, of course, there's these everyday worries for people, but then especially for businesses that are calculating already the costs. It has been 80 billion so far. This is the start without the Brexit, and what happens then, you know, with all the transportations, possible customs.
Let's just bring in some other people's views. Andreas saying that it's too late, far too late to start reaching out to Labour to sort out this mess. Yeah, right. Tweeting in, Sven saying UKIP MEP makes the ridiculous comment that UK citizens in Europe have nothing to fear because there are many non-born EU migrants living here in Belgium. I thought we had to leave the EU to limit non-UK-born migrants and to access welfare. Why doesn't that apply to the EU too? And Malgoza saying that the idea of strategic autonomy, this is on defence actually, from the US, as what Macron said, is in her opinion absurd and populist. Just one other piece of news in the last last couple of minutes, Donald Tusk, even if Jean-Claude Juncker won't talk to us, Donald Tusk has tweeted saying that even if after today we don't know what the result will be, let us be patient. I think a rather coded tweet there from Donald Tusk, given the fact that Theresa May's statement seemed to raise more questions than it answered. He clearly is as unclear as the rest of us, but we'll hopefully have a little bit more clarity when we come back after the break. We're going to be in London and taking your calls. We still have got time for them. Pick up the phone, give us a call, let us know what you think. Join us in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Raw Politics, Your Call. It's been a pretty, excuse me, so lively programme. I'm almost losing my voice. We've heard from Theresa May saying that she's going to ask for a Brexit extension and somehow kind of try and find a national unity answer to the Brexit problem by reaching out to Jeremy Corbyn. And we've heard from Donald Tusk, who says that we should all be patient if we've not been patient enough.
Well, we're here in Brussels, but the action tonight is, of course, in London, so we can cross over there now and speak to Vincent McAviney, our correspondent. Vincent, what have you got for us now? Any reactions?
Well, I managed to catch a couple more members of the government coming out, and when Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, who was pushing for this extension, did exit, she was just getting into a car here. I asked her if she was happy. She gave me a smile and said, very happy. And also the Scottish Secretary, when he left as well, David Mundell, I said, is he pleased that they've got this extension? He said he was also happy to have gotten it. So there is a section of the Cabinet very happy tonight. Another section, though, less so, it seems. Everyone else that's left since then, Liam Fox, Matthew Hancock, they've all remained pretty tight-lipped. I am curious, though, as to why Andrea Leadsom, I spotted her leaving before the statement was made, before everyone else in the Cabinet. She was very opposed to having any kind of extension like this. But on the Labour side, I understand that the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, is busy drafting a response to this. But lots of people in Labour circles pointing out that basically Theresa May is trying now, possibly, to put the Labour Party in frame for getting the blame if they don't get something through. So Will Straw, who is the son of Jack Straw, the former Foreign Secretary, and Will Straw himself actually led the Remain campaign, he said the time to ask Labour to help devise the UK's Brexit policy was the day after the 2017 general election, not 10 days before we are due to crash out. Obviously, Corbyn should set conditions consistent with Labour's policy, customs union and a confirmatory public vote. So it's already getting quite a strong kickback from Labour. The Prime Minister and Jeremy Corbyn will, of course, have PMQs tomorrow, and then we'll see whether or not Jeremy Corbyn heads into number 10 Downing Street for these discussions with the Prime Minister.
Which one are we going to, Christy?
OK, Vincent, thank you so much. That was Vincent McAviney with the latest there from London. And we can hear now from Elizabeth, who is on the line there. Elizabeth, what do you make of all this?
Hi. Well, I'm absolutely furious that we seem to be... I never voted for a soft option. I voted to leave Europe, and it's not democratic. I don't think the media understands it. Democracy is the most important thing that we have to leave our children and our grandchildren. We've seen dictators. There's been 5 dictators in Europe in my lifetime. I don't think you realise democracy is so important. I did vote for Brexit, but if I'd have voted for the other side, I'd have still said democracy is more important.
Yeah, but the Prime Minister, of course, and the Labour Party would suggest that this is still Brexit. It is still Britain leaving the European Union. To be perfectly frank, is it true to say that you knew the distinction between the single market and the customs union when you voted on the 23rd of June 2016?
To be honest, when we voted when we first voted to join the common market, they took us in by lies and deceit, and that's all we've ever been doing since. I'm just an ordinary voter.
Yeah, and what would you say to people, though, who said that Britain's leaving the European Union because of lies and deceit in the last referendum?
Well, I would say the Parliament's not the king. The people are the king. It's the people that vote for the people to run the country. We've told the people we want out. How dare they not take us out? Let them sort the customs union out. That's what they get paid for. Let them sort all the problems out. They get paid for that. But we voted to come out.
OK, Elizabeth in Scarborough, thank you very much for your call. Appreciate your time tonight. You know, there is a very emotional, visceral feeling about this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not going to be solved. It's not going to be solved by Theresa May's botched up sticking plaster that she's come up with tonight. I think she's going to see problems within her cabinet. I think she's going to see problems with the European Reform Group. And I think without a doubt there's going to be a huge kickback from the people to the Conservative Party. We
haven't got much time. Do you think that Europe should now agree to a short extension?
Well, I think that the backstop is actually the European election and preparation for that, because the extension can't go beyond that point. Then Britain should have the elections, and then we have all the time in the world to continue negotiations. So we are talking about days and weeks, not
just a former Brexit minister saying tonight she wants to get the deal through, contrary to the views of many Conservative MPs and the wider party. If she does so, she will put the party in grave peril. A sign there of potentially some of the reaction we will see from the UK. Theresa May tonight suggesting she's going to talk to the Labour opposition to see if they can find common ground, and ask for a short extension to Brexit beyond the end of next week.
Which would probably be like the 22nd of May, perhaps. Well, that's all we have time for now. Thank you so much to our guests, and thank you to you all as well for calling in and for your comments. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, and inevitably talk a bit more about Brexit. So tune in then. Take care.
Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Good night.